Hello, everyone. This is Howard Fox, and welcome back for another episode of the Outdoor Adventure Series, the podcast that celebrates individuals and families, businesses, and organizations that seek out and promote the exploration, stewardship, conservation, access, and enjoyment of the outdoors. Dr. Wenfei Tong is our guest today. Dr. Tong is a conservationist, a wildlife biologist, writer, nature photographer, artist, and educator. She received her Doctor of Philosophy in Evolutionary Biology from Harvard University, and she is the science editor at Cornell University. And why are we here today? Because Dr. Tong is also an accomplished author, and we're going to hear about 3 books that she has written. The first being Bird Love, The Family Life of Birds. Second is Understanding Bird Behavior, an illustrated guide to what birds do and why. And third, How to Read a Bird. Dr. Tong, it is a pleasure to have you on the podcast. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Howard. And I should explain, publishers do this all the time. It's very naughty of them. The 2 books you listed after Bird Love are actually the same book. They just go by different, I'm so sorry, they go by different titles.
Those
Depending on which
darn
country you
publishers,
are
God.
from. So I personally love the Australian cover the most, and I think that has a different title all over again.
Okay.
Understanding Bird Behavior is the US version, and the publishers assured me they did their market research. So it just depends on which country, but don't get fooled by Amazon. This has happened to me with buying other books.
Okay.
But I've got the same book from the same writer, just with different titles and different covers.
No worries. I think they did that
Sorry.
with the Harry Potter novels, Harry Potter and
Yes.
the Sorcerer's Stone
Right.
here versus Harry Potter and the Philosopher's
Right.
Stone in the UK. I
But
think they
then-
figured Americans wouldn't understand what a philosopher was, but which is
That's
possible
what
these
I
days.
heard too. Yeah, the
Yeah.
only difference is you'll have the presence or absence of yous and things like
Yeah.
that. And
There you go. First, may I call you Wenfei?
please,
Okay.
thank
I once lived next door to a family when I was growing up, and the husband was a heart surgeon, a very famous heart surgeon. And I remember he said, "Howard, you can call me Earl." And I said, "Doctor," I'm not going to say what the last name was. I can't do that. It's just not in my DNA. I was taught to respect. It's like the clergy, your rabbis, your pastors, doctors, and it's just part of the DNA, and it's never going to go away. So,
Well,
when I
my
asked for-
parents are actual medical doctors, so I always feel like a bit of a imposter syndrome situation, since I'm just a PhD doctor, not a doctor
Well-
who helps humans.
You know, I've heard, and eventually we're going to get into this conversation of birding, but I do remember hearing one day is when you go to school and you get your bachelor's degree, you know this much information. When you get your
yes.
master's degree, you know this much
That's right.
information. And when you get your PhD, you know this little bit, and that's where your
That's right.
expertise is. So you are an expert. So, and also a bird lover. And I do want to give a quick shout out to my friends, Phil and Susan Ertel from the Red Cliffs Audubon in southern Utah. They were the ones that actually were chatting about the conference that they had hosted last year and had mentioned that Wenfei was a keynote speaker there. And as they say, the rest is history. So again, welcome. And I hope you're doing well. Where are you located?
So I now live in Ithaca, upstate New York, or
cold.
some people consider it upstate New York. And we just had the most lovely and exciting dump of snow, what I think of as proper snow. So yes, I was just able to cross-country ski out of our door on Sunday when everyone
That's very
was
nice.
busy shoveling, and the
Okay.
snowplows hadn't come yet. And it's now cold enough that I should be able to ski every day for the rest of the week before I go back to Singapore to see my parents. So that will
Oh,
be
very
very
nice. Well, definitely going to be different weather than when you go back to
Yes.
Singapore, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Okay. I love the the weather, the being outside right when there's a big dump of snow or right after the snow, especially late at night, early in the morning, because it's quiet. And every once in a while, it's like in the mornings, back in Chicago where I was from, is you would hear birds chirping, and there was this one special bird, which was the cardinal, which
Mhm.
which is wonderful against the backdrop of snow. And but there's something about snowfall in that early morning or late in the evening. It's just so quiet. My favorite time. So I would love to learn a little bit more about your background, because this interest in the talk you gave to the Red Cliffs Audubon, and then as I was researching for the episode, um, you're involved. You've got your hands in a lot of different uh, pots, so to speak, plates on plates,
Yeah.
different, so to speak. But uh, what's a day in the life of an educator and somebody who has this love of nature and wildlife, and very artistic, I might add? What's a
Thank
day in
you.
the life today?
It's always different. I think I get easily bored, and I tend to describe myself as lazy, which makes people laugh. But what I mean by that is I don't like to spend too much effort doing one thing. So
Okay.
I probably move on from one thing to another quite fast. I was definitely and still consider myself one of those children who never knew exactly what they wanted to do when they grew up.
Okay.
And I think it's very nice now that I'm firmly in middle age to feel like it's okay not to ever know what you want to be when you grow up. So I have a son who's 4, so I spend some of my time enjoying nature with him. In terms of a day in my life, I mean, I have a full-time job as a science editor and I collaborate with a group of very talented film producers. So
Mm.
we work in this little unit called Conservation Media, which is housed within the Cornell Lab of Ornithology at Ithaca. And what I love about my job there is I get to work very closely with passionate conservationists from typically North America, but sometimes all over the world, ideally.
Mm.
And we try to help them make communications tools that will reach the right audience, a targeted audience that can get conservation to happen in their own
Mm.
backyards. So
Okay.
there's a lot of meaning in my everyday job, and I get to meet some really cool people. When I'm not doing that, I get to talk to people like you, or, occasionally do really cool talks where I get to fly to Utah and see Zion, thanks to Phil and
Susan,
that
yeah.
group,
Yeah.
the Red Cliffs
Red
Audubon.
Cliffs, yes.
Um,
Very nice. How'd you like Zion?
oh, it was so spectacular. I mean, I'd heard so many things about it, and I've been to a lot of other beautiful national parks, especially, in the area, Bryce Canyon, Moab. They're all beautiful, but
Hmm.
Zion is, yeah, probably. It's definitely one of my favorites. I'm like this with birds as well as national parks or places. Whatever I'm seeing at the moment is often my favorite.
Well,
You know, they're also beautiful in different ways. It's
and
pointless
that's
to compare.
good. I mean, I think that is
Um,
good to feel that way. I mean, as you were
yeah.
talking about a minute ago, not knowing what you're going to be when you grow up, the wonderful thing about being a child, hopefully some of that still exists today, is you get to be curious and wide-eyed. Whereas if you go to school and you get your degree and you focus on spreadsheets and numbers and testing in labs, or maybe even you have a vocation of being an electrician, a plumber, you're very focused on getting an expert in one thing. But you're describing this idea of, the world is kind of your oyster, so to speak, your canvas. You get to explore whatever you want, and in that moment, get the joy out of it. That's pretty special, by the way.
I'm very lucky to be able to do that. I mean, I suspect if I had to, work at the same job all the time and I wasn't able to talk to all my friends from around the world, feel at home
Hmm.
in multiple places because I have this connection to the nature there. I just wrote a piece for academic journal, about how birds root me wherever I am. They make me feel connected to a place, regardless of where it is, because the soundscape they provide, especially, makes me feel like I immediately wake up knowing, like what you mentioned about the cardinal. I actually used that in the piece. If I wake up and hear a northern cardinal, I know I'm somewhere in the eastern US or eastern North America. And similarly with wood pigeons in the UK, where I used to live for a bit, or the yellow-vented bulbul in Singapore, which is the ringtone for my parents now, because every time they call me, I know, okay, this is a bird that really started me loving birds and nature through bird watching when I was growing up in Singapore. And it's a beautiful, bubbling sort of song. A lot of bulbuls have this very cheerful song that goes on in a bubbling way.
Okay.
That just brings me right back to Singapore. And actually, it's so funny that you mentioned birdsong in the mornings, because I was shoveling with my son yesterday, and there was this misguided house finch. I mean, it's really cold right now. I don't know what it is in Fahrenheit, but in Celsius, it's about -14 without the wind chill. So it's well
20-ish
below freezing.
degrees.
And this silly house finch was singing his heart out. I don't know what he thought he was doing, but I was glad he was feeling warm enough and energetic enough to sing like that. It was very cheering.
When I grew up in the Detroit suburbs, and then eventually I lived in Chicago, one of my couple of my favorite memories of growing up, one was our neighbor had a wood-burning stove. And so in the evening during the winter, especially after a snowfall, just to be out there, again, the quiet of the snow, but you could smell the wood-burning stove. And it just made me feel so good. And there was also a train that would go by, and the sound of a train and a whistle can, even to this day, makes it feels good. But the third sound is what you just described. Growing up, especially in the wintertime, is hearing the cardinal, the northern Midwest, the red cardinal. And I always knew when I was now in Chicago, when I would start to hear them again, February, March, you knew spring was coming. And so they were the harbinger of better weather, is that cardinal. And I say, living here in Las Vegas, I think I miss the cardinal the most, because I miss that sound.
Yeah, I think for me, that sound of spring, at least in the eastern part of the US, is the wood thrush. When I hear the wood thrush in the woods, I really feel like it's properly spring. It's not cold anymore. But I love what you said about how evocative different senses are other than sight, especially for our memories. I think, to get back to your question of what's a day in the life of Wenfei look like, I sometimes do a lot of drawing, scribbling, doodling with my son, but I think a sense of smell, in addition to a sense of hearing the soundscape around us, sense of smell is really important to us. So I love smelling that a deer we've just walked into a place where a deer must just have passed, because I can still smell it.
Oh, wow.
Or I love cooking, and I'm really glad Martin seems to have inherited a decent sense of smell. So we have a lot of fun cooking together. When I lived in Montana and Alaska, I used to love foraging for things like morels or huckleberries or huge portobello mushrooms on the slopes in Alaska. Yeah, I do like hunting as well for that reason. It's not that I really like killing animals, but I do enjoy eating game. So I figure you should be able to do the necessary thing. So and I feel like then I don't eat as much meat as and I'm not being as cruel to a lot of factory farmed animals. But I haven't hunted for a while in Ithaca.
Have you ever been fishing?
I've gone as far as being instructed on how to fly fish once on a pack trip in the Bob Marshall Wilderness in Montana.
Okay.
But I'm usually birding. So
Okay.
yeah, my grandfather used to love deep sea fishing. So I do
Okay.
love being on a boat. And I
Okay.
used to get to sit on these boats when I grew up in Singapore as
Okay.
a very little child. But I was always a bit too small. Oh, and I guess I did go halibut fishing once in Alaska. You sort of have to if you're there, right? You have to go in and
Halibut
look.
or
And
big king salmon.
yeah, I was very lucky. I was the only person who got a tag for a king salmon, and I got a king salmon, and she
Very
was
nice.
delicious. She was really good eating.
It's the
We
best.
turned most of her into sashimi and had it the same day. I've never eaten such good
Well,
sashimi
very
in my
nice.
life. Yeah, that was incredible.
Very nice. I see you're making me the even though this is an outdoor podcast, outdoor adventure series, I sit a lot. I sit at a desk like we're doing right now with a Zoom call. I coach during my day job. I'm a coach, so coaching clients. And I would love to be out there in the wilderness, living anywhere, doing exactly what I'm doing because I love the podcast. I love coaching, but just not at a desk. And I think being able to pick up and go somewhere that's beautiful, whether it's Montana, Alaska, here in Nevada is beautiful. And just being able to enjoy nature, sit, listen, have a good cup of coffee. Here's my good cup of coffee, which I'm not going to drink because I don't want to dry my throat out. But there's just something special about that and just being tuned in to nature around us, the sights, the sounds, visual. And I love with birding, as I learned from Bridget Butler. I don't know if you've ever met her. She's the quote unquote, the bird diva. She's up in Vermont and she's a member of the Outdoor Writers Association of America. And I had gone to a conference in Jay Peak, and I remember going birding with her, and she had this concept of slow birding. And I think what I love about birding is that if we slow down a little bit, even in our local park, and just listen and breathe, and you realize there's a lot of activity going on around us. And I love the fact that as you're kind of been describing and as I've gotten to know you, is there's some value here of understanding birds and their behavior and what they can give to us or tell us about the environment, what's going on in our lives. Because if we just listen to them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that operates for me at roughly two levels. One is in nature and birds are my version of religion or meditation or whatever it is that brings people inner peace and
Mhm.
a feeling that they're in the present, that they're not having to deal with all the cognitive dissonance and upset that the world and the news around them might
Mhm.
bring. There's that inner peace. There's also, and I think the only other thing that does that for me is books. So growing up in the city, even though I had some experience of nature through things like birds, a lot of what I experienced was vicariously through reading about places like Nevada, actually included. The Western US always had a fascination for me, also much of sub-Saharan Africa.
Mm.
And I think drawing from that, understanding not just myself, but other people and their behavior, their motivations, why they might have evolved to behave certain ways in terms of how we deal with human politics and human social relationships in general.
Mhm.
I find other species shine a lot of light on that, not just birds, but just this is my evolutionary biology hat. I love trying to explain why organisms, including humans, behave the way they do, given their evolutionary past
Okay.
and the things in common that they share. And I mentioned I love literature, so I like drawing comparisons between Jane Austen or Shakespeare or Larry McMurtry writing about the West or something, and behavior in other species. So there's this duality of how I interpret. I also love watching when I see my son playing with other children or talking to adults. It's really fun to put on this sort of animal behavior lens and just watch the interactions and
Mm.
understand them.
So what would be a couple examples of, say, bird behavior or animal behavior, and what we as human beings can take away from it, hopefully for the better? What are some examples?
For the better. But I mean, I hesitate to be too, you know, take too much moral prescriptive advice from what other species do.
That then answer it how you would. If I were to rephrase
That's
that question, then
I
is
I
that good
think
or bad?
I think what it gives me is as what I think of as a very helpful sense of almost like detachment or
Mm,
objectivity with which to view something that I might be mired in. So, and it helps me see my own life, or, it helps me not feel like I'm completely buried and encased in my own little problems.
mm,
Helps me see things on a longer time scale, and that really my own life is just this tiny drop in the bucket, and the whole of nature is so incredible in terms of the long evolutionary history that
mhm.
humans are such a little blip relative to everything that's happened before. There's a sense of humility there that I like. I know that's a very big picture.
Okay.
In terms of what birds can, so that's getting back to that spiritual aspect, I suppose, of what animals can lend. On a maybe slightly, this is like my slightly darker sense of humor that I sometimes mention. So because, in nature, nothing is ever completely sentimental and Hallmark cardy perfect, picture perfect. There's that the reason I called one of my books Bird Love is because to me, love is definitely the other side of love is if you love something intensely, you can also get intensely upset by it, whether
Mm,
it's a family member or whatever. If you care very deeply, you care deeply on multiple levels.
okay.
And I made myself laugh when I got the first hard copy of Bird Love delivered to me. I just moved from Alaska to New York City to start a new job. My first marriage was definitely breaking up on the rocks. And I opened the book to this page that had two herring gulls facing in opposite directions, looking very grumpy.
Mm.
And the caption was something like, in herring gulls, divorce is often preceded by a failed nesting attempt. And that just made me laugh
Oh, really?
because it gave me this feeling that, hey, this kind of thing happens all over in nature. And it was just funny to me in the moment. That's a very hard way of, it's tricky to explain, but it, it just gives me this sense that I'm
You,
not that important. And I enjoy that feeling of perspective.
what's interesting is, as you were just sharing that with the herring gulls, well, two pieces. One, in the morning here in Nevada, where I live, we have a very nice covered backyard, trellises and plants, and there is a feeder out there. And when there's food in it, always notice that doves come in pairs.
Yeah.
So they are, which has hope for anybody that's in a relationship, is.
Right.
And then there's a Facebook, perhaps even Instagram page that watches these two eagles in I think up in Big Bear in California. I think that's where it is. And every season there's cameras on these eagles and how the they're taking care of each other. They're taking care and watching their offspring, the eggs and the hatchlings. But you can also learn about when they're upset at each other. Like if something happens, the female eagle, who's the bigger of the two, you can tell when she's angry. And
Yes, yes.
the husband is on the edge of the, like, okay, what did I do now? But whereas some birds, I guess, are just very solitary. So I'm a solitary person. So I love if there's a raptor or an owl somewhere, I kind of feel attuned to that. But I this idea of bird love and the family life of birds, what other lessons can a reader take away from what you've provided in this book?
I think what I just hope for is that reading about the diversity of behavior across different bird species in different places, and also within a species or within an individual, how flexible birds can be, how well they can adapt to different circumstances, helps people connect to something else in nature, a different species. And it's almost like my worldview that we're just not so different from other species or from each other, other humans. And the hope is that kind of very deep connection of seeing ourselves in other species, seeing the similarities, not just the differences, is a good first way to really then appreciate and want to save or protect what we
Mhm.
have left in terms of biodiversity. I, I'm not sure how. So that's a general
Okay.
way of, the books are filled with anecdotes, which I think of as fun dinner party conversation starters, almost like, oh, did you know that ospreys tend to try to bring as many fish as they can for their prospective mate, and that's an honest signal of being a good mate, as opposed to, in some cases, with our cities, we've messed up some of these courtship signals that birds use as an honest indicator of this is going to be a good mate or this individual is going to have good genes for my offspring. There are cases where cardinals in cities tend to be much less red or redder, I can't remember the direction of this, because of some of the supplementary food that we give them.
Right.
And then that decouples the red color from the difficulty of finding the food that indicates that it's a very healthy individual. And so the female's not so able to make a good choice in terms of the genetic quality of her mate. Or, things like that show us both how resilient nature can be as well as how vulnerable it can be at the same time. I think that's a really cool aspect of nature, and
Well,
it's just more observable with birds. It doesn't have to be with birds.
but what I love about birds and birding, it's available almost anywhere you go, whether it is a local inner city park or it's out in nature, your backdrop, or going out into the woods as you're going cross country skiing or here in the desert. I have a app on my phone, and I think you know it very well, Merlin, and which I love just to mess around with the birds in the neighborhood because I'll play the tunes. But
Yeah.
I love being able to capture the birds and visually, perhaps even take a photo if I can, and then share it. And hey, look what I found. And how
Right.
do apps like Merlin and perhaps there's other platforms that are available, how can they help humanity perhaps be better stewards of the environment and perhaps slow down a little bit and appreciate what the birds are providing for us?
I mean, I think they're doing such a good job. Things like Merlin, almost every person I meet, and I know I'm not alone in this, almost everyone I work with experiences this. Someone hears that we're from the Cornell Lab of Ornithology and they say, oh, I love Merlin. And I think most people love to just have the phone on, have Merlin on, and then they come back to it. I have a good friend whom I like cross country skiing with, and sometimes he just texts me a report from Merlin from his backyard in the morning while he's drinking his coffee with a full report of all the birds that Merlin heard. So I think it's this wonderful democratization of bird appreciation, where if you don't already know the different calls and songs, and you're not used to listening for that all the time, it helps you form this instant connection with the birds around you,
Mm-hmm.
and a record, if you don't feel like keeping a list all the time, that you can refer back to. I think that's wonderful. And then paired with another, I think it's an app from the lab, but it's also a huge database of bird sightings and bird observations called eBird,
Mm.
which was around before Merlin. It's a way for any bird anywhere in the world to submit the data that of the birds that they're observing on a given day in a given place. And the Lab of Ornithology is able to use those data to create long-scale patterns about where birds are doing well and where birds are not doing well.
Okay.
And it's a great way to directly give back from the birds that you're enjoying seeing and hearing in the moment. And the more people who fill out and submit eBird checklists, the more data we have. And these data are freely available if you go to the lab group, as well as, I think if you go to the Lab of Ornithology and you search eBird status and trends, you'll see how some of these observations are used
Okay.
to tell you, very, very specifically where something like a mallard, the populations are increasing or decreasing over time,
Okay.
where they're in trouble.
Okay. Well, we'll definitely provide some backlinks to the
Yeah.
sites up in our show notes. In the interest of time, I would love if we could do a quick tour of your website. I've got so we can share with our listeners your wonderful work and even the covers of the books and the art. And
Oh, thank
so,
you.
so I'm going to share the screen, and there we go. All right. So for our listeners, we're on Wenfei's website, wenfeitong.com, and we have her books. Looks like these two birds are a little angry with each other.
Yeah. So
Uh,
I found that funny. That's the American cover.
yeah.
And, I guess something that looked a bit textbooky was
Yeah.
definitely what the market research said people would respond to in the US.
Okay.
Also, I just wanted to say the little character on the top, the equivalent of the P for the Princeton University
Okay.
Press. If you go to the tab,
Yeah.
that's right on top, and the tab on my website. There's a
Oh,
little
okay. So
silent
let's
character.
let's go back.
Yeah, no, you can see it right in front of books
Okay. Okay.
on the very top bar.
Okay.
There's a Chinese character right. You don't have to click anything, Howard. Just go above right on the top where you've got the different tabs. So you've got 4 tabs open right now. And on
Yes,
this
yes,
particular
yes.
tab, I was just going to say that's the one in Chinese.
Okay.
That
Hang on
character.
one second here, because there's this
Sorry, it's very
toolbar
minor.
here that that the computer provides, and it's making my life a little difficult here. Where we go.
Sorry.
Okay, so now these characters.
Instead of the P, if you just go to the left of that, yep, that's just how you write the one part of my name in Chinese.
Ah, okay, gotcha.
It's a bit of a shout out to my father because he gave me the name Fei, and the one part means language and sort of culture and
Okay.
literacy, things like that.
Oh,
And
very
Fei
good.
just means good at, but it's nice to have that name. Oh, I'm also thinking about it because I was just talking to a publisher from China who's about to publish a Chinese edition of Bird Love. So I'm very excited that it's finally been translated into Chinese.
And it should be very nice.
Yes.
Okay, so now we've got the first editions. Now we've got Bird Love, the French edition, the German edition. I love this.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see how different people, different nationalities choose different covers.
I love it. And then this is your podcast, your talks and workshops. So this is some of your photography, which is something I'm always interested in. Nature, sustainability.
Sometimes
That's
I get
beautiful.
to send things to a book for magazine covers or things like that. Yeah, that was a really fun last minute Thanksgiving birding trip that I did with
Nice.
friends when I was in graduate school.
You know,
You can
that's
tell I
what
love travel.
I can imagine. And you get to do it for your work, which is great. And all you need when you travel as somebody who loves birding is a nice pair of binoculars and a notebook.
Yes, yes. And I don't always bring a camera. I often I definitely my preference is to listen and be in the moment first, and
Sure.
then if I see any birds and they're doing anything fun, to watch them for as
Right.
long as I can. And then if I have time, take a photograph. So the photographs are very late in the process.
Okay.
And otherwise what I do is go back and sketch the experience, sketch the birds
Okay.
so that I remember that.
Very nice.
And I should say, I don't get to travel that much in my job anymore. So a lot of this is from a
Okay.
previous life when I was, a graduate student and a postdoc and so forth. But the drawing and the painting is definitely a fun outlet that is always there.
Now, do you get to do some painting and drawing still?
I do quite a lot. My mum's observed that I do it a lot more now that I've got a child.
Okay.
So the sketchy pen and ink stuff, like with those Japanese waxwings, that tends to be what I do if I'm traveling. That's
Very
what my
nice.
travel sketchbooks look like.
Well, that helps you get to
Or
those long international cross ocean flights as
oh
you can.
yeah, they're often done in a big rush, like when I'm about to check out of the airport or of the
Okay.
hotel or something. But
Ah,
yeah, some of these are from France. And then the little mouse was done on my landlady's, the one that's kind of on a wall that looks just above the horse.
okay. Oh yeah.
That one. Yeah, that's done on my former landlady's wall, just above the baseboard heater. And it's life size.
Oh, very nice.
So I've recently done a mural of the world on our wall here, and we're populating it. My son and I, or I do the painting, my son does the instructing. We're populating it with different animals that come from
Very
different
nice.
parts of the world. So yeah, the painting is definitely going strong,
Very
and
nice.
the
Well, and I
drawing.
love the fact you're introducing your son to so many different modalities, the painting, drawing, cooking, and
Yeah.
it's going to give him a very well-rounded upbringing, which is great. Now, I want to go, by the way, with our on this website, folks can connect with you on Instagram or looks
Oh,
like
that's
the
right.
Twitter,
I
LinkedIn.
should take the Twitter thing down because I never use it.
Okay, so we'll
But
take the Twitter
Facebook,
down. All right.
yeah,
All right.
I
I'm
should
going
go
to
and
stop
fiddle with that.
sharing now. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
the brief tour of the website. And oh, we should also
Oh
acknowledge
yeah.
all the places that you have been on podcasting. So thank you for
Thank you
joining me
for
on my
having me.
podcast. So that's the beauty. You get to share with the world what you're passionate about. I love that. So I am curious in the time we have left, Wenfei, as you kind of think about your career and the choices you made and education, where you've lived, what you get to do, what are some of what I would call aha moments that like, wow, I get to really do this? What's an aha moment for you?
Wow, I think I get it every time I meet someone, which is a lot of the time, on the trail who's a complete stranger, also carrying a binoculars. And we just have a good time talking about a bird that we're hearing,
Mhm.
or it's the best if I'm not really expecting to see someone else. I'm in a completely new place, like right early in the morning in a part of Taiwan that I just went to on holiday. And suddenly someone else with binoculars materializes and we get talking, and there's this instant connection with someone because we both love nature and love birds. It makes me very happy to have
I
that
lo-
extra language.
I love
Um,
that. I love that.
yeah. And I think I feel it every time I look at a bird. I've got a bird feeder on my window that I'm looking up at right now that I can look at every time I sit at, I spend most of my time at a computer, just like you do. So I think a lot about being outside, but the actual time I get to spend outside is very limited these days.
That's the
And
beauty of living here is even if it's cold, I'll bundle up.
yeah,
It's as cold here as 50 degrees.
right.
And maybe in the summer I'll sit in the shade before it gets too hot. But there's just something about being able to enjoy your surroundings and nature, and and there's a connection between just being out in nature and our health, mental health, physical, emotional health, and slowing down, listening, breathing, hearing the birds and their activity. It's so you have nature is in some ways in coaching, I would call nature your co-creator
Right.
or a
Yeah, that
co-facilitator
makes
of the
sense.
experience.
Yeah.
And so it's available to you and
I mean,
through
I
the work you're
love
doing.
just looking at another animal and thinking immediately, I know, I feel as though I know how you feel, and I know what you think. I just, there's this instant bond, which I don't usually get with humans, actually. I definitely get it very fast with a different species. With humans, you have to talk a bit, you have to figure out where they're coming from, you have to figure out if you can trust them.
Right. So
Mm.
there's a lot of, yeah,
Yeah,
there's a lot of other
I do.
things you have to worry about with
I don't have
humanity.
to worry. I mean, maybe I don't hang out enough with more sophisticated social animals like chimpanzees. So, and maybe if I got to know some ravens better, I would experience the same. Oh, I need, you're sizing me up just as I'm sizing you up, so I can't trust you immediately.
It's like those
Oh,
ravens
yeah,
and the crows. Yes.
right.
I noticed before when we were on your website the photo of the owl. The
Oh, that great
cardinal has a
gray.
special place, but there's something about the owl and it being wise. And
Yeah.
if I have to, whenever they play the games on these leadership workshops or trainings, what animal would you be? I'd probably would be the owl,
Oh,
but
really? I
yeah.
mean, your mention of the owl is really nice, actually, because you're making me realize the other thing birds do for me, especially birds, is they're these almost like mental placeholders for all the memories that I really treasure
Mhm.
of places I've been, who I was there with, or if I was there by myself. And something like seeing that great gray owl, I know exactly where I was,
Mhm.
and it brings me back to immediately to that place. I have a few friends I've been bird watching with where we remember trips based on, what we saw where.
Oh, of course.
Not in this nerdy listing way to best someone else's tally of species, but really that there are certain places where we had a particularly interesting
Hmm.
sighting of um yeah, birds doing something we weren't expecting, and we remember that
Yeah.
very clearly.
I think with birding, smells, sounds, and also food. Certain
Yeah.
foods evoke long distant memories, and I think that's important. Believe is what makes us most human, is we can associate events from long ago through our senses, and it brings back, hopefully, good memories that even when we're struggling, that that was good. That made me feel good. And I think the it's especially just important and available to us through birding, because it's all we have to do is go outside, and it's
Right.
hopefully it's there and will
Yeah.
continue to be there.
Exactly. Yeah.
I
Hopefully.
love it. Before we head out, is there any insight that you would like to share with our listeners? Could be another book, a quote, piece of artwork, something that you would like to share with our listeners?
I think we've covered almost everything. I mean, just go
Okay, so now I
enjoy,
read your
look
show notes
outside.
here, Wenfei.
Okay.
The
Okay.
sculpture Andy Goldworthy.
Oh yeah. I mean, that was a recent sort of connection or something that made me go, wow, I think was
Okay.
the question. Yeah, he's this terrific sculptor who's British and he works with natural objects. And his whole philosophy is, I mean, he's going to say it a lot better than I can. But what he does for me is capture the ephemeral quality of almost everything that is really beautiful about nature, or the ever changing quality of nature. And it allows one to both appreciate how beautiful the world is, the natural world is, as well as accept the fact that part of the beauty is that it's always changing.
Mm,
And so I know change is very difficult to accept. I have a hard time with that a lot of the time. But, he'll make these fabulous sculptures out of ice or
mhm.
leaves that he's collected. And it will melt or blow away. And that's part of the art. And I just rewatched an old film about him called Rivers and Tides with my son, who seems to have converged on liking to do a lot of these things. So since he was a baby, he would try to arrange leaves and twigs and
Okay.
rocks. And so this is like his artist.
It's his
And
thing.
and
All
we had
right.
a snowstorm, and so he was busy creating snow sculptures in the inspired by the documentary we watched about Andy Goldsworthy. So he's at an age where it's just really fun to interact with a developing mind
I love
on
it.
all these different aesthetic fronts. It's given me a newfound appreciation and enjoyment of what Andy
Fantastic.
Goldsworthy does.
Well, we'll try to find a link back to some of his work and our website, or and share
Sure.
that with our listener in
Yeah,
our
I
show
think he
notes.
just Sorry, I think he did just celebrate his 50th anniversary as an artist, and
Okay.
there's an exhibition of his in Edinburgh, I think, that I'd love to see if and when I get back to the UK. And I think there's a new documentary about him, which I have yet to watch. We don't watch much TV, so when
Okay.
I finally get to it, yeah.
I hope you get to it, and I'm sure you and your son will enjoy it. And I love that. Just as a reminder for our listeners, the best place to learn more about you and your work, where do you think we'd like to take them?
The website would be good. I should update it a bit, but
Very
that's
good.
about right.
Okay.
And I always enjoy, you know, going to different places and giving talks. So,
Yeah, very good. Well, folks can visit the website and research more about you and your work and where you have visited and given talks. We've also got some links back to some of the media that you have contributed to. So, Wenfei, it's been a pleasure to have you on the podcast, and thank you so much for taking time out of your day and to join us. I truly appreciate it. I'm really, again, grateful that the Red Cliffs Audubon, Phil and Susan Ertel introduced you to me and suggested you might be a great guest for the podcast, and loved having you. Thank you.
oh, I had so much fun. Thank you, Howard. It's a lovely
All right.
conversation.
Excellent. Listen, stay in the line. We're going to do a quick close and you and I can have a final chat. Okay.
Okay.
All right, folks. We have just been chatting with Dr. Wenfei Tong. She is a conservationist, wildlife biologist, writer, nature photographer, artist, and educator, and had the pleasure of kind of hearing about her journey, both as an educator and also the wonder of introducing her son and watching him and his actions, whether it's outside cooking or watching movies and building sculptures. But there's life is around us, the environment, the wildlife, and especially birds. And do want to recommend that you visit. And we'll provide backlinks to the bookshop so you can check out Bird Love, The Family Life of Birds. And I'm only going to read one variation of the book, Understanding Bird Behavior. We'll provide backlinks to it on our show notes. And of course, if you'd like to learn more about Wenfei, you can visit her website at wenfeitong.com. Of course, folks, you can listen to this episode on our website, outdooradventureseries.com. You can find our pages on LinkedIn and Facebook, and we are also on YouTube. The video of this episode will be up on our YouTube channel. And of course, you can listen to this episode wherever you get your podcast from. Okay, folks, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, go out there, have a fantastic day. Get outside, slow down, breathe, listen, look, and see what birds you can find. And just take some time to be in the moment, and we really hope you enjoy yourself doing it. And we will look forward to having you on a future episode of the Outdoor Adventure Series podcast. Take care now.